Now recently, the CSGO leaker known as Gabe Follower released a video showing off CSGO on the Source 2 engine. Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Time is but a window. Now recently there has been a lot of hype around CSGO coming to the Source 2 engine, and that is because Valve has been dropping several hints. Now these usually show up in Source 2 updates, which means updates for Dota 2. And we found a lot of things, everything from maps being updated on Source 2 to them bringing over skins. So with all the excitement and the amount of time it's been taking Valve to bring over CSGO to the Source 2 engine, it's no surprise that modders decided to take it upon themselves. Now at first glance, this just looks like CSGO. There's really not much of a difference. But let's take a closer look and talk about how they accomplished this. Now back after Half-Life 2 and Counter-Strike Source released, one of the first big mods on the market was called Garry's Mod. This allowed you to take assets from pretty much any Source-based game and manipulate them any way you chose. It's basically a mod that allows you to make mods, simplifying the entire process. So it's no surprise that after the Source 2 engine was released, a spiritual successor to Garry's Mod was created for the Source 2 engine. S&box. Sandbox, get it? And by using this mod, they were able to create a modified version of CSGO on the Source 2 engine, and it only took them 6 months. But how close is this to what we can expect to see when Valve does an official release? Now in this video, the map being showcased is DDoS 2. Now as interesting as this is, what people don't realize is the current version of DDoS 2 was actually backported from Source 2. Yes, that's right. DDoS 2 was originally created in the Source 2 engine and then backported to the Source 1 engine. In fact, almost the entire current competitive map pool was. And because of this, they made the maps specifically with the Source 1 engine in mind, which is why the map doesn't look any better when it comes back over to the Source 2 engine. They're actually going to have to go and redo this entire map and all of the competitive maps for the Source 2 engine. This will also go for all the player models and of course all of the skins. Now you can see, even with all that being the same, this still looks a little bit different than it does on the Source 1 engine, and that's because of the lighting. And that is because the way the lighting works on the Source 2 engine is completely different than it does on the Source 1 engine. I feel like this is most noticeable here. Look how bright it looks there in the distance. I think that when you're in like a dark tunnely area and you're looking out towards a bright area in the distance, it's going to look a lot brighter. Now we do know that they have implemented ray tracing into the Source 2 engine and the CSGO build for the Source 2 engine. So this is definitely going to be one of the biggest changes when it comes to lighting, is that you'll have the ability to have more extreme brightness and darker areas, which I imagine that they will minimize by redoing the lighting completely. Keep in mind, this project was trying to replicate CSGO as best as possible rather than change it. Which brings us to the next most noticeable aspect, is the movement. Now while they tried to replicate the movement as best they could, switching over from the Source 1 engine to the Source 2 engine, as you can see here, it is incredibly slidey and incredibly quick. And I thought that current CSGO was an AD spam fest. This takes it to a completely different level. Still though, I don't think the actual movement will replicate this exactly. I do think that there will definitely be some movement changes though. And this is just because it's on a brand new engine and there has to be some. Even if they hand program every single variable into the Source 2 engine the way that it is in the Source 1 engine, the physics engine is just too different. And because of that, it will be noticeable. Though personally, I'm still optimistic that Valve will once again return the movement back to its CS Source glory days. Except that would be just as impossible as it being the same as CSGO. No matter what, the movement's just going to be different, and it's going to be different than any version of Counter-Strike you've ever played. Which brings us to the next section. Let's talk about the physics. Now, as you guys can see here, they didn't really have a lot of physics systems in place. Yes, they did have character models dying, but they didn't even have nade physics. And this is probably because they didn't even seem to have any nades. As far as I could tell, I didn't see any flashes, HE grenades, or smokes. And while personally I'd be okay if Valve decided to remove Molotovs and decoys, we didn't see any of those either. Now, while I think this is just because they haven't had time to implement them, once they do, I expect they're going to react a little bit differently than they did prior to the Source 2 engine. This means you're going to have to learn new lineups. Flashes might work subtly differently. I mean, if you remember the difference between a flashbang in 1.6 and a flashbang in Counter-Strike Source, you could see how different it was going from engine to engine when it came to utility. So don't kid yourself and think they're going to work the exact same way, because let's be honest, they're going to be a lot more realistic in terms of physics, which makes me wonder if physics items might make a return in CSGO on the Source 2 engine. Now, as you guys know, the physics in Counter-Strike Source were all mostly removed for CSGO. Now, there's a few different reasons behind this. First of all, the physics were all buggy as hell in CS Source, which means that it could cause a lot of anti-competitive behavior. And players could even do stuff like exploit the physics to hide the bomb. But even more so than that, the physics were incredibly taxing on your PC. And this is because of how the Source engine processed the physics. But with how the Source 2 engine processes physics, this is no longer a massive problem. The Source 2 engine can process thousands of physics without any major load onto your computer. And not only can it process a lot of them, it can process them accurately. So having physics items might not be as anti-competitive as it once was. If nothing else, I'd love to see them bring back end-of-the-round bomb explosion physics. Alright, next up, let's talk about the guns and the recoil. Now, as you can see, they pretty much ported over every single gun for this, and all the guns seem to work as expected. Now, the thing is that unlike previous versions of Counter-Strike like 1.6 and Source, CSGO has set recoil patterns. And while there is a bit of variance, this is going to make it a lot easier to port over to the Source 2 engine. Meanwhile, the older system from Counter-Strike 1.6 and Source had 7 distinctive spray patterns for every gun. This made it a lot harder to control your spray, but really put a lot more emphasis on being accurate with your first few bullets. Just talking about it makes me want to make a video on the history of Counter-Strike and all the changes that it's gone through. Overall, these modders did a great job porting CSGO over to the Source 2 engine in just 6 months. And while this definitely looks like it is enhanced from the current version of CSGO, I imagine that the Source 2 version of CSGO by Valve is going to be even more visually impressive. Anyways guys, if you want to see the full gameplay footage, there's a link in the description below. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.